My name is Emily Quaid, and I'm here with Reverend Ron Fisher from the Church of the Ascension in Westminster, Maryland on Court Street. Today is April 26, 2011. Could you please introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm the Reverend Ronald S. Fisher. I have been the rector of the Church of the Ascension for over 22 years now. And I was a native Marylander and privileged to serve in churches around Maryland all my career.
Okay. Could you just tell us a little bit about the church, the church's history?
Sure. The Church of the Ascension is an Episcopal church. It was founded in 1844, and it has been at this location from the very beginning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's been here for a while.
Yes.
We were just saying we actually haven't seen it when we were driving through.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah. So what exactly do you do for the church?
Well, as the priest, my primary responsibility is the spiritual leadership of the parish. So the classic pieces of that are preaching, teaching, pastoral care. But in a church this size, there's a certain amount of administration that goes along with
Right.
that, development of program, supervision of staff, very practical kinds of things that all are part of the ministry of the place. Yeah.
Okay. Have you always been a member of this faith?
Actually, no. I was raised as a Methodist and became an Episcopalian in my 30s. And I had actually been a Methodist clergyman, and so I moved from that to the Episcopal priesthood.
What made you switch?
Well, I have always been more sacramentally focused than my Methodist tradition would be.
Great.
And I guess over time it just sort of caught up with me, and and I became just sensed a calling to the priesthood as an identifiable kind of vocation as opposed to simply being a pastor.
Right.
And so that was the gist of it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back to the church.
Yeah.
What are a few of your religious services, and when do they take place?
Well, the heart of our worship is Sunday morning. And we have 3 services on every Sunday, at least from September through June. In the summer, we have 2 services. But the 3 services are each rather different. The early service is a Rite 1 Eucharist. Rite 1 is the traditional language. It looks very much like Anglican communion services for 400 years.
Wow.
The 9 o'clock service is a family-oriented service. It's really the service that most of our people come to. It's not in the old historic stone church. It's in the Great Hall, which you see is set up for worship in there. And that one has the greatest variety. We do all kinds of different styles at that service. And then the 11:15 service is back in the stone church, and that's generally Rite 2 and has music, but because it's in a more traditional place, it has a more traditional feel to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually my next question was, do you consider your services more contemporary or traditional?
Well, we do it all here. It depends on the Sunday and the service.
Right.
The first Sundays of the month are completely contemporary. Other Sundays, we try to blend the two. We don't segregate those experiences the way a lot of churches do.
Right.
We try to have a balance of what we say is the best of music throughout church history, including today.
That's
So,
nice. You have a nice mix
Yeah.
for everyone.
mhm.
Can anyone attend your church?
Absolutely, yeah.
Anyone? How would someone go about becoming a member if they wanted to?
Well, our concept of church membership really comes out of our more Catholic understanding of the faith. And so you become a member of the church, capital C. by baptism. And then you basically register at a local parish as being your parish. It's a little different from the way the Protestant church looks at it, where you actually join that congregation.
Right.
The people who come to us from other denominations are either brought in by confirmation or by reception. If they've already made an adult commitment to the faith, then we receive them into the Episcopal Church, and that's the bishop's prerogative to do that. People who are Episcopalian by background simply transfer their membership from their former parish to this one.
Okay. What types of outreach programs does your church have with the community?
Well, probably the biggest one that we're involved with is the Sunday Soup Kitchen. That's been going on for probably 20 years now. There are soup kitchens in Westminster every day of the week, and our day is Sunday. We also provide space for St. John's Roman Catholic Church on Wednesday because they're kind of out of town a bit, and so plus they have the schools, so they need their cafeteria during the day. And then sort of dovetailing with that is a more recent one. The Mission of Mercy, which is a free clinic, comes here twice a month. They used to come to the distillery building where the social services were, but they needed to expand their operations, and so we offered them space here. And since the clientele is pretty much the same for both, it really works very well. We're also involved with an organization called New Life for Girls, which is a faith-based drug and alcohol rehab program. And that one is a very personal kind of ministry in the sense that they participate in events here and make their contributions just as much as we help them. Everything from renovations at their house to holiday dinners and things like that. And so beyond that, we provide space for a number of different groups from outside in the community. I think we have nearly a dozen anonymous groups of one sort or another, mostly AA, but also Al-Anon and some others, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, and so it's a pretty extensive list.
Right, you have lots. You're hosting everyone. So you said your church has been here 22 years?
No, I've been at the church for
you've
22
been at
years. No,
okay,
the church has been here since 1844.
That's okay.
So however many years that is.
Okay, and since the church has been here, how has Carroll County changed around
Well,
the church?
when the church was established, it was just a few years after Carroll County had been carved out of pieces of Baltimore and Frederick County. And so Westminster was still pretty small, even though it had been made into the county seat. It was growing quickly. 5 people started this church.
Oh my gosh.
And one of their members went all over central and southern Maryland collecting funds to be able to build the church, because even in those days a stone church would have been a significant investment. And so from that to the Westminster we see today, which is much more, well, I was going to say suburban, but it's really more exurban, I think. Westminster is to Baltimore, I think, what Frederick is to Washington. It's kind of a town center that people who commute a fairly long distance can find a home here instead of identifying so much with Baltimore itself, except for working.
Right, that's nice. So these changes that happen in Carroll County, how have they impacted your church, or have they impacted?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've grown from 5 members to over 400.
Right.
And we've also gone another, I think, rather significant change. our church would be described as what's called a pillar church in the community, and I think that the people within Westminster itself do see our church as kind of one of the community anchors.
Right.
But many of our members come from outside of Westminster and are more suburban in their mentality.
Right.
And so that aspect of being a church in a particular community is not quite so strong. And for them, I think that the outreach and the service is what's the important thing. So it's a church that is changing not just in demographics, but is changing in its self-identity too.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any issues that are affecting your church today?
Well, I think that to some extent, you know, we've had the issues over the traditional and contemporary, particularly for Episcopalians, because we do tend to be so traditionally minded, and we want to honor the tradition. And yet, musical tastes have changed so considerably in the last 40 or 50 years. And then there are, you know, larger issues that many churches are facing today, issues over sexuality, things like that. So, yeah.
How does your church feel about the issue of sexuality?
Well,
today?
we tend to be a pretty conservative parish.
Right.
And I think that what we find here is that there's a welcome embrace for everyone.
Right.
But for the most part, there is not, people don't feel that that necessarily has to translate into blessing relationships as though they are marriages. That the view toward marriage here would be really connected with procreation, nurturing of children, and so on and so forth. And you know, that would be. But we have a diversity within our parish as far as that is concerned, both in terms of attitudes, but also in terms of people's sexual orientation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is there anything that you would like us to know about your church? Anything else you want to add? You want to tell us?
Well, I think that, well, just to speak personally as the pastor, this is one of the finest churches that I can think of. It is a very nurturing community. It is a community where people are very forbearing toward one another. There is a strong sense of community and really a sense of being a spiritual family together. It's just been a joy to serve. I don't think a priest could ask for a much finer church, really.
Right.
So,
Okay. Well, thank you very much
well, you're
for
very
doing
welcome.
this for us.
Okay.